All new tonight, the defenders uncovering a disturbing reality. EMTs and paramedics do not have any state laws to follow when it comes to how many hours they can work.
Now, a former ambulance driver is speaking out and claims he nodded off at a stoplight. Mark Boyle tracks down the information you need to know and found out North Carolina lawmakers may be making some changes.
There's no time to rest.
This former paramedic fears retaliation and doesn't want to be identified, but wants to share his story to warn you about what he calls a major problem.
There have been times where I've fallen asleep sitting at a stoplight.
The man says he quit his job over concerns he may end up hurting someone based on the number of hours he was working. NBC Charlotte started digging, and it turns out his claims are spot on. There are no state or local laws governing how many hours paramedics can work in a shift.
I've ran calls that I don't remember. There was one instance where I fell asleep for a moment with a patient in my care.
According to the North Carolina Department of Labor, there are no state or federal regulations concerning the maximum hours an ambulance driver can be behind the wheel. Some counties do have guidelines in place, like Chester County, South Carolina, regarding the maximum length of a paramedic shift.
What's the most they can work in a given shift with regular hours and overtime worked?
Most that we let them work is 48 hours.
Do you think that's too much?
No, I don't think it's too much.
All three stations here in Chester County have rooms just like these. The EMTs and paramedics can take naps during those long shifts.
We don't regulate when they get naps or when they don't get naps. You know, it's basically we give them as much downtime as possible.
This former ambulance driver admits to nodding off on the job and says that should be a wake-up call for change in this industry.
There have been several incidences over the last several months where ambulances have crashed, and those crashes have been blamed specifically on driver fatigue.
In New York this year, an ambulance driver died in a crash after reportedly falling asleep behind the wheel. While North Carolina may not have regulations for the amount of hours an ambulance driver can be behind the wheel, Medic does. Locally, Medic says their rules allow for a max 80-hour work week. The state does confirm there are studies in the works that could pave the way for regulations to limit the hours emergency responders must spend behind the wheel. I'm Mark Boyle reporting for NBC Charlotte.